Alice Weidel is causing a stir with new political demands, pushing for talks with the CDU, a step that is calling the firewall between the parties into question. But is there a secret plan behind it, or just a tactical move? And how is Friedrich Merz reacting? Alice Weidel has already stressed several times that cooperation with the CDU would be useful to find common political solutions, particularly in the areas of migration, economy, and internal security. She sees a lot of overlap. However, the CDU leadership, especially Friedrich Merz, is officially sticking to the demarcation. Nevertheless, there are voices within the party calling for an opening to talks. The real question is, have there already been talks behind the scenes? There are indications that some CDU state politicians are more open to the AfD than the federal party. In some state parliaments, there have already been similarities in terms of content and votes. Could this be a first test run for greater political rapprochement? For Friedrich Merz, this development is dangerous. On one hand, he must not alienate conservative voters who are hoping for a harder line from the CDU. On the other hand, he must prevent his party from being drawn into a debate about possible cooperation with the AfD, which could lead to internal party conflicts. The CDU could be split as a result, but the AfD also has a lot to gain. If Weidel were to force the CDU into a debate about rapprochement, the AfD could establish itself as a legitimate conservative force and grow further out of its role as a protest party. At the same time, it could win over disappointed CDU members who are dissatisfied with the union's current policies. Political pressure is increasing, particularly in the eastern German states, where the AfD is ahead in polls. The CDU is faced with the question of how it wants to deal with the AfD in the long term. It will be more difficult to maintain the firewall there if the AfD becomes the strongest force in state parliaments. What does this mean for the future of German politics? Will there be secret talks, or will the separation between CDU and AfD remain? One thing is clear. With her move, Weidel has reignited the debate and put Merz in a difficult position. The CDU is caught between strategy and division. On one hand, Friedrich Merz has repeatedly stressed that there will be no cooperation with the AfD. On the other hand, pressure is growing from within its own ranks, particularly from the Eastern German state associations. Some CDU politicians see the reality. The AfD is gaining support and could soon be so strong that the union cannot form a majority without it. What is particularly problematic is that indirect cooperation can already be observed in some state parliaments. CDU politicians have voted for AfD motions in certain votes without officially cooperating with the party. These cases are fueling the debate. Is this purely a matter of policy, or is this already the first step towards rapprochement? Merz himself remains ambivalent in his rhetoric. Sometimes he emphasizes the firewall to the AfD, then he contradicts that AfD voters must be brought back. This ambiguity is causing uncertainty within the CDU, but also among its voters. The question is, how long can Merz maintain this balancing act? If the AfD continues to gain strength and the CDU does not perform significantly better in the upcoming elections, the pressure on him could become so great that he has to position himself either for an uncompromising demarcation or for a careful opening of the debate. While the AfD benefits from the debate, the CDU is torn between strategy and internal division. The AfD cleverly uses the situation. Weidel and her party present themselves as the real opposition to the traffic light coalition and as a party that is prepared to talk to the CDU about common solutions. This step is strategically clever because only when the union is under pressure does the CDU consistently refuse talks. The AfD can claim that the CDU is not interested in conservative politics and is no longer different from the traffic light coalition. If there are first signs of talks, the AfD can celebrate this as a breakthrough and present itself as a serious political actor. Regardless of how the CDU reacts, the AfD is gaining presence and normality in the debate. That is precisely the aim of Weidel, to establish the AfD as a political force to be reckoned with in the long term. The upcoming elections could be the moment in which it becomes clear how the CDU must deal with the AfD. The state elections in Saxony, Thuringia, and Brandenburg in particular are crucial. The AfD could become the strongest force there, a historic moment for German politics. The CDU will then be faced with a difficult decision. If it forms a government with the SPD and Greens, this could drive conservative voters even further to the AfD. If they ignore the AfD, even if it has the most votes, that could be seen as disregarding the will of the voters. There are initial signs of cooperation that could plunge the CDU into a deep crisis at the federal level. No matter how it turns out, Weidel's initiative has sparked the debate. Friedrich Merz can no longer remain silent. His reaction could determine the direction in which German politics develops in the coming years. The big question: will there be secret talks? Actual secret talks between the CDU and AfD have not yet been confirmed, but cannot be completely ruled out. In times of political crisis, there have always been unofficial contacts between parties that do not officially speak to each other. Unofficial exploratory talks at the state level, without official recognition by the CDU leadership, are possible. Discussions about policy in which the AfD and CDU agree on content, but cooperation is not made public, could occur. Backroom talks between individual CDU politicians who want to sound out what cooperation could theoretically look like are also conceivable. The coming months will show whether the fronts will become more entrenched or whether there will be initial cautious rapprochements. Weidels' initiative is certainly not a coincidence. It sets in motion a dynamic that could change German politics. Weidels' move is no spontaneous idea. It is a strategically thought-out action that could have a lasting impact on the political landscape in Germany. The AfD has recognized that its growing voter base and the weakness of the coalition are putting it in an increasingly strong position. By demanding talks with the CDU, Weidel is pursuing several goals. She wants to put the CDU under further pressure, establish herself as a state-supporting force, and break the narrative that the AfD is a party that you cannot talk to. The CDU, on the other hand, is facing one of its greatest challenges in recent years. After the Merkel era, Friedrich Merz repositioned the party as a conservative force. But when it comes to dealing with the AfD, he's increasingly reaching a dead end. On one hand, he wants to distance himself from the AfD to be perceived as an independent political force. On the other hand, he notices that more and more conservative voters are dissatisfied with the CDU because they believe that the party is too soft and not edgy enough in its positions. This dilemma is particularly evident in the eastern German states. In some regions, the AfD has long been the strongest force, and it is becoming increasingly difficult for the CDU to justify why it does not even want to hold talks with a party that is voted for by a large part of the population. The upcoming state elections in Saxony, Thuringia, and Brandenburg will be the acid test for Merz and the entire CDU. If the AfD becomes the strongest force there, the CDU must decide how it wants to govern. Either in alliances with the Greens and SPD, which would further anger its conservative voters, or with the AfD, which could plunge the party into a deep crisis nationwide. The timing of Weidels' move is therefore no coincidence. She knows that the CDU is under pressure. By demanding talks, she is forcing them to show their colors. If Merz sticks to the firewall, the AfD can portray him as an ally of the traffic light government. If he deviates even slightly from his previous line, there could be internal conflicts in the CDU. But is cooperation between the CDU and AfD even conceivable? Officially, this is out of the question, but the reality shows that in some state parliaments, there is already selective cooperation, be it through votes on common issues or through direct support of AfD proposals. That does not mean there will be a coalition tomorrow, but it does show that the firewall is not as stable in practice as it is portrayed to the outside world. In the long term, the CDU will have to face a debate that it has avoided so far. How will it deal with an AfD that is becoming ever stronger? Is strict demarcation the right way, or do they have to think pragmatically about how to deal with the changed political landscape? There is also a lot at stake for German politics as a whole. A rapprochement between the CDU and the AfD, whether on a content or strategic level, would fundamentally change the party system. It could lead to new political alliances, but also pose major challenges to existing parties. The AfD would benefit from any rapprochement, while the CDU is in danger of being torn between demarcation to the left and rapprochement to the right. So, what remains of Weidels' call for talks? For the time being, it remains a clever maneuver that is causing political unrest. But the stronger the AfD becomes, and the more the CDU comes under pressure in the coming elections, the more likely it is that this question will not only be discussed in the media, but could actually become a political reality. Friedrich Merz has not yet decided which course he will take, but one thing is certain: maintaining the status quo will not work for the CDU much longer.